Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. Folks, I've been telling you every week, it's a crowded world out there in the digital part of promoting your company, the digital world. Oak City Tech can help you with web design, SEO, social media, anything like that. Help get you found, help get your word and your message out. They can help you do that. Go to oakcitytech.com. Tell them what you're looking for. I know they'll be able to help you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Welcome back to Triangle BNI. Each week, we bring you a small business success story from Triangle BNI. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Each week, about 30 chapters and nearly 600 members get together, and our main purpose is to help each other grow our business. And our small business success story today, you will know him officially as Chris Hendricks with AFLAC, the benefits specialist. We know him as the singing benefits guy. Chris, how are you today?
Hey, I am absolutely fantastic. It's already been a beautiful start to 2021. I hope that's true for you as well, Mike.
Yep, so far so good. Been working on business plans, goals, things like that. So it's been good so far. Chris is in RDO5, that is Triangle Business Builders. They meet Thursday mornings at 8:15. Right now it's via Zoom. Once we get clearance to start meeting back in person, they meet at the Triangle Shooting Academy. And if you are in the Briar Creek area, if you have a business up that way or just want to meet some wonderful folks that can help you grow your business, that's where they are located. So every Thursday morning at 8:15, please jump on a Zoom call. You're going to meet some good people. All right, Chris, normally I can narrow my guests down to maybe two headers, two titles, two businesses, but I got a full page of things we can get at with you. To say that you have a lot going on would be an understatement, I think.
Yeah, I got a lot going on, and I tend to do that on purpose. Idle hands do terrible things, and so I like to keep mine moving. And entrepreneurship and connection just seems to be at the core of everything that I do. So I kind of put that as the centerpiece and let everything else work itself out.
I think people will find out as we get into the conversation and they learn more about you. The two things that do show up all the time is storytelling and connecting. So we will get to that. And those are two crucial pieces. One, the connecting part is just the right thing to do. You're helping other people. You ask very little back. You give a lot. We know that from the folks that do know you know that. And then the storytelling, we're going to get into your music and all the different things you have going on. But with AFLAC, you kind of do need to help them tell a story, or they need to tell a story back to you so you can understand how you can help people.
That's true. The fact of the matter is that at some point in time, somebody knows somebody who's been hit with the unlucky stick. And that's where AFLAC really comes into play. I mean, it's been a wonderful experience working for them as a company. It's been a wonderful experience being an agent for them. But at the end of the day, it just puts more dollars and cents in other people's, in the people's pockets that need it. And I will serve any way that I can. And if AFLAC is the solution for them, I'm just happy to be the guy that takes care of them.
I think insurance is one of those worlds that we don't want to know about. We say we do. We know we need it, whether it's auto insurance, home insurance, health insurance. We say we need it. We all talk a good game, but at the end of the day, we just want to say, just tell me, just handle it and make sure I'm okay. And we hear from our insurance people once a year, but that's not the right way to approach it. Again, most of us are guilty of that. But when it comes to the health insurance side, we don't realize there are other things we can do to add to our current health insurance plan from another company or wherever we work.
Yep. That's a really good way to put it. I think that for most people, as far as it comes to insurance, the devil's in the details. And because especially right now with everything going on in the world, people don't like details. But that's my job. My job is the details. And so in my case and in AFLAC's case, the angel's in the details. I'm going to be the guy that when it gets down to it, when it gets down to the nitty gritty, I'm going to know the specifics And I get to treat you like a human being, whether it's over Zoom or in person. And that's why I decided to dive into this world, because you do not succeed in the insurance world without long-term personal relationships. The same to be said with BNI, of course, but it's especially true with insurance. And if you're succeeding early on, you're not going to succeed for long if it's not about the personal relationship development. So,
And
yeah.
I've talked about this a lot on the show and in my coaching world. We don't really care what the logo is. And one thing BNI has taught me is shop local. There are 1,000 of you at least. There's a excuse me. There's 1,000 of me. Most of the companies kind of do the same thing, not 100%, but kind of the same thing. And it comes down to, do you know your local person? The best example I give is my chiropractor, Dr. Ashley. I've given her permission to work wherever she wants to. I don't care. I follow her. And in your world with the insurance, it's, do they have your phone number to call?
Yep.
And I've noticed that with, again, in your insurance world, man, we see everybody on TV, we meet everybody locally. But at the end of the day, are they comfortable with you knowing that you're going to look out for them?
9 times out of 10, the bigger entity that you're dealing with, the more likely it is that you're going to be dealing with a squawk box, computerized squawk box over the phone that sounds like an early episode of Charlie Brown. And I just know that from personal experience. I mean, I grew up basically in a hospital from the age of 4 on, had lots and lots of operations, and I've seen firsthand what the squawk box does for people. And the fact is, it's nothing, you know. And if all I got to do to succeed is be more personal than a squawk box, then I pick the perfect business, because it's so easy to be kind to a person regardless.
And there's a big difference between a national brand and then a national brand with a local rep and a
Yeah.
local touch. And I think that's what you bring to the folks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I like to think that I do the same.
Let's go talk about you. One of the things that makes you, you, and such a wonderful story is, let's go back to when you were 4 in the hospital, diagnosed with cerebral palsy at the age of 4. You have overcome, dealt with, adjusted, whatever 8-10 words we want to put on that. But I think that's given you a pretty unique perspective into options, what people need, questions they should ask. But I got to believe when you're sitting down with somebody, you understand kind of what a lot of folks are looking for or dealing with if it's not in the normal insurance world.
Well, I feel like I have a solid answer for that. So it's one thing to know details because it's your job. It's another thing to know details because it's your life, right? A lot of people can be great at their job, but if you're missing empathy, if empathy is not part of the equation, then you can grow all you want in your job. You're not going to grow at all as a person, all right? And you cannot avoid growth when the nature of your business is personal relationships. You just can't, because the more personal a relationship gets, the more you're going to take on as a result of that relationship with that other person, the more facets you're going to adopt. And so I have such an appreciation for having experienced, all of the things that I've had up to this point as far as spending time in the hospital, because while cerebral palsy does not reflect what everyone is going through, for example, a diagnosis of CP is obviously vastly different from, a diagnosis with a big C, cancer, right? But they don't have to be the same to have developed an empathetic heart. You don't have to have experienced the same things, because at the end of the day, the deeper relationships are, the more you realize how similar everyone is, especially in a year like 2020. So if anything, to answer your question, had I not experienced what I experienced growing up, spending time in hospitals, I would not have been able to go at this job full force. I'm not a numbers insurance agent. I'm a name insurance agent. Okay, you're not you're not rewired business coach to me. You are Mike Manning, right? And that is a huge difference today.
Looking back on everything you've been through at the age of 4, do you remember that? How much of that time do you remember? And how much do you remember processing when they told you and your family what you are diagnosed with?
I remember it very well. And I had an interesting experience. I call it the angry Santa Claus story. And the reason I call it the angry Santa Claus story, I should clarify. I'm really, really appreciative of the doctors and nurses and caregivers that I've had over the years. I had phenomenal care. I went to UNC, I went to Duke, and both of those hospitals took really, really good care of me. But I remember, very distinctly some of the earliest conversations I had around the diagnosis, and the focus around the diagnosis, those initial conversations, were really about the doctors and nurses really made it about the challenges that I was to expect, that I was going to face. They would say things like, it takes 10 times more energy for you to do basic things like take a step. It's going to be more challenging for you to develop friends and develop relationships. How funny. I mean, those people ought to be laughing or rolling around thinking about that now, considering what I do. But I say that to say it was all about the hardship initially. And I remember even as a 4 or 5-year-old just thinking to myself, how does this person in a white coat with a big, big, big beard come into this place, this hospital room, and tell me as a 4 or 5-year-old, even as an adult, that my life's going to be hard. I haven't even had my life yet. It's like, this person is a doctor. They're not a fortune teller. And I remember thinking to myself, this person knows so much about my diagnosis. And yet, even though he works here at this hospital, my mom and I parked closer than he did. I remember thinking that, like, it sounds like funny. It sounds like a joke, but I remember going into the office and seeing how close our car was to the hospital and thinking that, I'm 5 years old. Here's this guy that's worked here for however many years, and I'm already ahead of the game. So I knew from that moment that if I could bring that kind of perspective to other people, regardless of what business I wound up in, that I would be successful.
How much of that attitude comes from your mom, family members, and close friends as you were growing up?
Oh, all of it. All of it. We are the 5 people we spend the most time with. We really are. So it says in business and in life. And my mom has been my biggest advocate from the beginning. She's the one that always said I could do anything. I had naysayers in my life, sure, but everybody does. And as different as my life was, again, going back to what we said earlier, it's also very similar to what many other people have experienced. So I don't separate myself in that way, but I am extremely grateful for the immense positive influence that I've had in my life. I mean, I'm a big energy person. I absorb who's sitting across from me. I can't help it. And and because I know that about myself, I'm very careful about the kind of information and perspectives that I absorb. And had it not been, I would not be as protective. I would not be as careful if I didn't have someone like my mom and my friends and my father included, all these people that would constantly say not only that everything was going to be okay, but that I would always figure out a way to adapt. That was really kind of the core, because it wasn't about being wishy-washy. It wasn't about being Walt Disney, like, oh, just believe in yourself and it's all going to be okay. No, it was life is life. You are going to experience challenges. That's the reality. But we've already we've already seen you as an adaptive person. I came out of the womb trying to figure out how to breathe, right? Comes natural to a lot of people, wasn't natural for me. And if I'm forced to adapt immediately the moment I come into the world, then that's my expertise. Whoever I come across, I get to adapt to you. It's the best part about my business too.
And we're going to get to the irony of you working at Disney, but we will get to that because, again, anyways, we'll get to that in just a second. We are here with Chris Hendricks, benefits specialist with AFLAC. You know him better as the singing benefits guy. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. Folks, you're going to need a website. If your clients cannot find you, your potential clients can't find you, it doesn't matter how wonderful your product or service is. Please go to Oak City Tech. Tell them what you're looking for. They will help you get that started. And then their other services will help you get found even more. All right, Chris, I enjoy the screw you world stories. And let me say this up front, dude. You and I have known each other for 4 or 5 months now. Michaela introduced us. We're COVID connections because we've never physically met. We know each other through Zoom, which I'm very happy to have that connection with. I have no idea what you've been through. Not even going to start to say it, so I don't, and I'm not even going to pretend to. But I love your stories where you tell the world, you give the world the biggest middle finger they could get and say, I'm going to win this battle. And so far you are, right? Family, kids, jobs, passions, side hustles. You got it going on, right? And of course the looks. I mean, who could turn that down, right?
I appreciate that, man. I can't take all the credit for that, man. That comes from my mom and dad. I just got lucky there. But I appreciate that. There's a little bit of Johnny Cash in me, a little bit. But all of the good that kind of resistance to naysayers and negativity can bring, right? Right from the get-go, we've already kind of dove into this, but people have made assumptions. And my biggest strength in this life has been being underestimated. And I tell that to a lot of people. If someone hires me to give a talk or something, that's really kind of the core messaging, is that if you've ever been underestimated, use that. Use it. I think there are so many people that attach value to themselves without it being really a tangible thing. They'll say things like, I'm this guy's got a big heart, or this guy's got a big smile, and that'll just really serve him. It's like, well, what does that really mean? Okay, but if you start to really look at yourself and focus on, hey, okay, I have cerebral palsy. That's my diagnosis. But a real world business advantage of that, especially when it comes to networking, doesn't matter if it's Zoom or in person. Whenever I show up in a room, I've got a unique look about me, period. I've got a unique, memorable look. And that's not me being braggadocious. I'm talking to anyone out there that might be facing, some sort of physical limitation that other people can see. Not all scars are visible. I'm lucky that mine is, right? And if that makes me more visible to other businesses so that I can develop more relationships, then I win before I walk into the room. And if people can have that perspective about themselves, we would have a lot more growth and a higher GDP.
Yeah, that is true. There are a lot of folks that post on social media. A lot of times they're these feel-good quotes. And you alluded to that a little bit. And I'm not a big one on quotes. I'd rather talk to somebody, and that's how I connect versus a quote. But in reality, that one quote that said mindset matters, that's kind of what you've adopted early on, wasn't it?
Oh, especially the right mindset. And it's funny, I was talking to Deresh Marshall about this morning, and I work with her. She's phenomenal. She's a phenomenal coach, as you are. And we talked about fixed versus growth, right? Growth mindset is so important. And you can I learned recently that it's not about people having one or people having the other. Some people can have both. You have a growth mindset, but then you have certain things about you that get in that way. So for me, I'll use myself as an example. I'm all about growth mindset, but sometimes that fixed mindset aspect of self-sabotage, like, oh, I'm doing a really good job. Oh, and then I'm offered this thing and I don't know if I'm worthy of taking it, right? Then all of a sudden you have a barrier that gets in your way. And so it's really staying focused on that perspective, especially throughout a year like 2020 and all the things that have gotten in our way, I think is very important. So to answer your question, yes, growth mindset is a part of who I am, but I'm also human, and figuring out a way around those fixed days has certainly been something I've had to experience as well.
I'm curious to know I'm a big moment in time guy. When a decision is made and you go this way instead of that way, how would things have changed? Or is there a moment or two in your life where you knew, because of your physical limitations that you have, not the mental, let's talk about physical first, that you realize, well, I'm probably not going to be able to do that. So I need to understand that. And then was there a moment in time where somebody said, Chris, you will never do that? And you did and thought, okay, there are some things I can do or do better than other people have expected me to do?
Sure. I'll be succinct. I have two quick answers for you. So the first one is absolutely there's a moment when I realized certain limitations, and that would be when I decided it was a good idea to try out for the middle school basketball team. Like, look, I don't know where this pretty face of mine came from, but it certainly wasn't always this way. When I was in middle school, to say that I had an awkward look about me is a dramatic understatement. I mean, there's usually like a seat at the table in middle school or high school for like the awkward, the outsiders, if you will. I was way beyond outsider. I mean, like I had Terminator legs. I was wearing KFO on my legs in order to walk. I had a walker. I had braces. I was more metal than human. I had a hitch in my step. And I just thought it was a good idea to try out for sports because that's what everybody else did. And if you could have seen me on the court, just trying to just keep up with these guys that were like 3 and 4 feet taller than I was less than 100 nothing. For anyone who's seen Rudy out there, 100 nothing, 5 foot nothing. I mean, I was less than shrimp. Shrimp ate me. And to say that I just got absolutely annihilated is an understatement. So that was the like, okay, I probably am not going to be the next Larry Bird. That's probably not in the cards. But then I also had people that said, I have a tremendous passion for music, and I've been singing for about the same time that I've been, or right around the time I was diagnosed when I started singing, if not before that. My mom would say I was singing in the womb. But I had tons of people that say music wasn't in the cards for me, that I would be too odd, too outside the box for music. I had people say that, people would like my voice but not like me on camera. I had people say that I wasn't pretty enough for the music business and show business. These are actual quotes, by the way. I wound up for the first for my 20s was a music career, and I was blessed to have had some fortunate things happen to me. I kept playing, kept writing, kept singing, and as a result of that drive and a lot of luck too, I got a chance to tour with some of my heroes and see most of the U.S. and Canada and even a little bit of Europe playing music. So. Just passion dictates everything in business and in life.
So I want to go back to basketball, but when they left you open, you could knock down a pretty good 15-footer, right?
Oh, clearly. Come on. By clearly, I mean absolutely not. I was lucky to get a brick, to be honest with you. If
Oh,
I'm,
come on. The story is when they left you open, you were, 1 out of 3 at least from 15 feet, right?
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Now, talking about your music, though, it is so important to you. You've had songs published in films and through sports entertainment.
Yeah. I was fortunate. And again, it's who you surround yourself with as much as it is your drive and mission in life. I think they're kind of collective things. But as far as that specific success, I was fortunate to have, I wrote a song called Noise. And for a time, it was the theme song of our very own North Carolina Hurricanes. Back when Doug Wharf was the VP over there. And that was a wonderful time. The Florida Panthers as well. I had a couple. I did all the way up until relatively recently. I did music for a short documentary about persons with a couple with Down syndrome in love and how they navigated their relationship through this time, the pandemic. And I did the music for a Christmas film that came out last year called Carol of the Bells, and it stars the oh gosh, of course it's leaving me when everyone's going to look at this recording, but the guy who played Walter White Jr. in Breaking Bad, he's the lead in the
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
but yeah, I did the music for that, and so it's still a part of my life, absolutely, and a part of my business as well.
Who gave you that gene?
That would be my dad. That would be my dad. My mom will admit this and be happy to see this on a public forum, but my mom has a lot of talent. My mom gave me my drive and my determination, but she couldn't hit a tune. If she threw it out of the boat and hoped it would hit water, it would miss. My dad's got the vocal cords.
Which is easier to do in public starting out and today? Sing in front of 1,000 people or speak in front of 1,000 people?
Definitely sing in front of 1,000 people. One, the song is usually 3 to 4 minutes. It can take a little bit longer than that. And two, if you love the song, you can there's this moment where you can sort of disappear. And you can be in the zone when you're talking, don't get me wrong, when you give a speech. But you better focus on the audience too, because if you go in the zone when you're talking and you don't know what you said and then somebody asks a question, that's a big problem.
Writing songs, how much of those came from your personal experiences?
All of them. Relationships, as you know, in business and in life is a really big thing for me. And every good song is a love song. No matter what you think, no matter what you say or think or hear, every good song is either about some aspect of love that worked out or some aspect of love that fell apart. That's the best thing about the music business, the best thing about life. So I can't write something that is not to some degree personal, because I think when you're not personal, people can smell it. If it doesn't feel real to someone, they know how to disconnect from you, and that's not what I'm about.
And the Walter White character was Bryan Cranston. That just came to me, and I'm used to those moments as well. When you write a song, do you start with do you hear a phrase or do you hear a sound?
You know what? I hear a phrase usually, and it's there's a rule, and I put rule in quotes. If you start with a couple words or a verse, you'll never finish the song. Start with a chorus, it'll take you several weeks. If you start with the title, you'll be done by lunch.
Did not know that.
So yeah, I try to focus on a title and just make sure that every word that I write somehow relates back to that title, and that's where all good songs come from.
We are here with Chris Hendricks, the singing benefits guy with AFLAC, motivational speaker, small business owner, songwriter, cool dad, cool husband, all that good stuff. Also a member of RDO5, Triangle Business Builders. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. And folks, social media is a big deal. There's a lot of people on there. Some people posting once a week, some people posting 5 times a day. the team at Oak City Tech can help you understand what you need to get your message out there. It's a crowded world. It's a noisy world out there. So please go to Oak City Tech and talk to them about that. All right, Chris, one of my favorite questions to ask guests, married guests, is how did you meet your spouse? And do you both tell the story the same way?
We would probably tell the story a little bit differently. But I was fortunate to meet my better half, Heather Smith, at an event. I was hired to do an event out in California, and a performing event. I was opening up for a very famous comedian at the time. And when I was, right after I'd gotten the event, just before I was headed out that way, Heather had the unfortunate task of calling me and telling me that I would still be able to do the event, but they weren't going to pay me. And I was so happy to have the opportunity that I didn't care. I was so excited to go out to California and do this for this guy and meet them and meet everyone that was associated with it, that it didn't matter to me. And I think that she, part of the reasons why we connected so well is she was so surprised to hear someone not care that they weren't getting paid. I think she asked me why, and I said, because I love what I do, and this is doing what I love to do on a really, really big scale, and you couldn't have made me happier. So anyway, at the end of that trip, the person who had hired me initially asked a friend of his if they could take me to the airport, and Heather called up this person and basically said, "Hey, instead of you meeting Chris at the airport, or instead of you hanging out with Chris, can I hang out with him instead?" And so she switched places with him. And I was surprised to see her at the end of the week, and we wound up spending the whole day together. And then as I'm flying home, my better half will tell you this better than anyone. I'm really, really terrible at signals and interpreting them. And it wasn't until I was on the plane on the way home that I started to think, I think maybe this woman likes me. And so after I flew home, I called her back a couple days later. And after my roommate at the time basically slapped me in the face and said, this woman has feelings for you. I said, oh. I called her up on the phone. Turns out everyone else around me was right. And that's how it all began.
We are sometimes the worst at picking up on signals, aren't we?
Indeed. Doesn't serve you well in business or in personal relationships, but luckily I've gotten better at that since that day.
And then what kind of conversations did you guys have about cerebral palsy and what you deal with day in and day out and how that would affect her life?
Well, those things sort of came up naturally as the relationship became more personal and we got more and more connected. It was very situational, we didn't have as many conversations initially, as much as, say, for example, when we moved in together, I had to be the one to remind, she'd already picked up on this, but I had to be the one to re-emphasize, like, hey, I'm here to be an emotional support and help out financially, but you're going to have to get Mike over here to pick up the couch, because that's just not going to happen as far as, I'm just as bad at picking up couches as I was at middle school basketball. So, and these are, once we kind of realized our strengths and weaknesses as a couple, it was a lot easier to embrace. It's my space in the relationship to put my heart out there, and really be a solid, strong emotional support. And Heather picks up things, She has to carry my daughter, and it can be hard sometimes, but also it's a blessing for her. She gets to hold her more, and I hold her in a different way, so it's all a matter of maintaining that positive perspective.
And I think one of the neat things the kids will learn is when they see an obstacle or something that they're having to deal with, they're probably going to look at you and go, yeah, okay, I can do this too.
That's my hope. I want to give them, I want to give my daughter and anyone that's, anyone that I interact with a dose of both hope and reality. It's got to be both. It can't be rose-colored glasses or unintentionally. I hate to use the word unrealistic because I don't really believe in that word, but light expectations for life, because that you're loved by life when life challenges you sometimes. That because I personally believe that life doesn't challenge you unless it knows you can overcome it in some way. So,
and we talked earlier in the show that you have a ton of things going on. I think one of your neater titles is Chief Inspiration Officer of Perfectly Afflicted.
Perfectly Afflicted is a wonderful nonprofit entity that I was fortunate to start with my partner, business partner, Jeff Lawson, about 5 years ago now. It took a while to get the nonprofit status, but we're all about social emotional empowerment for young people. And before the pandemic struck, that was really our mission, was going around and speaking to schools. I had been speaking to schools since even before 2010, because I did some speaking in college. But Perfectly Afflicted was really an evolution of that. And the mission was just to remind young people that they matter and that they're worthy of themselves. They didn't need to seek fulfillment from other people or from the world, that it was something that they could find internally. That's really our message, that we deliver to young people. And that's our mission.
How much of your day are you involved with that?
Well, it used to be a whole lot more. The pandemic really, really impacted it. We were steadily reaching out to schools, and we were a part of all of the conferences that, the scholastic conferences that attach us to schools. We were a big part of the Exceptional Children's Conference that happens every year in Greensboro, and several other scholastic conferences. And that's where teachers get in touch with us. And then the teachers go to say, their principal or what have you, and essentially pitch us as a presentation to the school. And then at some point, not at some point, when the pandemic hit, we had to really shift gears and figure out how we were going to impact young people digitally. So right now, we are in the midst of kind of revamping our business plan so that we can figure out how to be just as impactful digitally as we are physically. And we had our last board meeting a week before the holiday, and we're going to be meeting again next week.
Is there a common theme these kids are looking for or that they need?
Well, I think that they're looking for acceptance, and I think that they need empowerment. There's so many different ways to realize that you matter. But, when you're a young person in middle school and high school, and for me, specifically, this is why we went on this journey together, because I did, in middle school in particular, I wanted to disappear, man. It just was not a positive time for me, quite a dark time, in fact. And very few people knew about it. That was a battle that I waged on my own. And the more on my own I tried to make it, the heavier it weighed on me. And I knew, starting Perfectly Afflicted, I just, me and my partner did not want young people to have to carry that same burden, and feel like they were alone. So uh, I think that the more creative you realize you are as a human being, the more the more empowered you feel. And so we use things like music and speech and creative workshops for young people to kind of unleash the things that make them feel, not just be unique and different, but really feel it. And at the end of the day, if they realize that they're unique because they can play a song or draw a picture, or step a certain way or talk a certain way, whatever it is, whatever their passion may be, that's really what it's about, is unlocking what an aspect of what it is they've always wanted to do. We help them figure that out.
And I've gone through nothing you've gone through. Are these kids better hearing that message from you because you've lived a lot of those things that they're probably facing than someone like me?
Well, I don't think so. I think that we all kind of carry our own story, and everyone's story has value. And I think not enough people realize that. You don't have to have gone through something um, uh, traumatic to come to that realization. There are, like, that's the beauty of living, is that every day you live, every moment has a lesson in it somewhere. I think the key to it is, as time takes more and more a hold of us, as we grow and as we age, no matter what our audience, we can't talk down to them. You can never, ever, ever talk down to your audience or assume that they're missing something. You have to see them as creative, resourceful, and whole. It doesn't matter whether they're in elementary school or in college, or it's, someone of your experience. You have to speak to them on the same level and respect them as a peer, because every single person you interact with knows something you don't.
Yeah, you are correct on that. And we talked earlier in the show that storytelling is weaved all through your life and your businesses. And one of those elements is also Kite Rush Media. You work on personal branding and digital marketing. The more I listen to you talk, so when you're working with these kids as they're trying to figure out who they are and what they are and understand what they can do, that branding in the corporate world, branding is kind of greedy and it's got dollar signs on it. It's kind of, we're just trying to do that. But for these kids, they really do need to understand their brand is, hey, this is me, but this is me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's funny. I think a lot of companies get this wrong. And I think that if companies were more like kids, they'd be more successful companies. Because when you are young, I'll use an exaggerated example on purpose, but when you're 5 years old and you're playing astronaut, you're not playing astronaut. You are an astronaut. You are. My little girl right now, she's come up with a game where she has friendly ghosts that hang out with her in her room, and she chases them with a flashlight and a net. And it's not, there's an aspect of her that sees it as a game, but 90% of her sees it as, no, there are little ghosts here and there, and I'm going to catch them and have conversations with them. If more companies saw their business that way, with that sense of purpose, they would grow a whole lot faster. It's not about a name that's flashy. It's a name that represents you. Who you are is what's going to grow your business and your person.
And I can relate to that story. We've got a 2.5-year-old grandson, and he was with us over the Christmas and New Year's break. And we got him a garbage truck. He is fascinated by the arm. When the garbage truck comes by their house, the arm that reaches out, grabs a trash can, dumps it this way. He loves that, to the point now where the garbage truck stops and the guys get out and talk to Oliver. because every Thursday he and his dad are there, and he's just fascinated by that. And the way you said that, now that I connect it, is we got him a garbage truck to play with in the house, and he picked up almost every bit of wrapping paper on Christmas Day to put in his garbage truck, which you can flip and get the trash in there. But you're right. In those moments, that's who he is. He's the garbage man, picking up the garbage or picking up the trash.
That's it. Every day is day one when you're a young person. And if we could only find a way to hold on to that when we're 50, then it would just be a different world.
I love that line. Say that again. Every day is day one.
Every day is day one. Beginner's mind.
Yep. When we're a kid. I love that. I know that. So let's go back to, before we get into that, I want to make sure I get your time at Disney.
Sure.
Now, you can brighten up a room. I've seen you in a room. I've been in a Zoom room with you, and it just, your energy is there. And I'll say this even if we weren't doing the show. You kind of fit at Disney. What did you do there?
I did a couple different things. So, and I hopefully the reasons they put me where they put me is because they liked me. But that's a funny story in and of itself. When I first got the job there, my mother was very hesitant and wasn't sure that was the best decision for me. So I told her over the phone, I'm going to make this the best job. Doesn't matter what position they give me, I'm going to make it awesome. And I was part of the Disney College program. And at the time, this may still be the same, but at the time, the number one job everybody wanted was the job on Pirates of the Caribbean. And as a newbie, there was no way you were going to get it. And my best friend and I got a job there together, and we were sort of in the line as new cast members. And right in front of me, my best friend picks up his little job slip, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm a pirate. I'm on Pirates of the Caribbean." And I was like, "That's great." And I walk in behind him, and I said, "What do I asked the woman what my job was, and she said something like, "Well, you get to energize people as they walk into the park." And I said, "So what does that mean?" And she was like, "Well, basically you're a ticket taker." And it's considered like the second, like you don't want that job. You don't want it. But I said, "You know what? I'm gonna be the best ticket guy on earth." And so if anyone at Disney walked through wearing one of those buttons, and anyone who's been to Disney, there's a ton of buttons, a just married button or a happy birthday button or a whatever. And depending on what button they were wearing, I would sing a song. And I wouldn't just sing it, man. I mean, I would let them have it. It didn't matter how many people else were in the line. And eventually, I was a vacation planner, and then I was also let's just say, for the context of this show, let's just say I was I got to be someone very special to young people who had a birthday. And I got to hang out in a booth and be that very, very special person that they were hoping to connect with and speak with at the park. So, happy birthday. That's all I'll say about that.
There you go. Have you been back to Disney as a parent yet?
Not as a parent. I've been back as a selfish single consumer, but I have not been back as a parent. And God willing, I will get to, one of my dreams is to do what my mom did for me for my daughter. So when I was 7, my mom surprised me, pulled me out of school, and took me to Disney, and it was an incredibly magical experience. I'm not saying that to be cliche. I mean, it really was. And my mom waited for me on purpose because she wanted me to be old enough to remember and absorb the experience. And I think that's really important because the magical time and the innocence that comes with it, it's not just something that leaves us. It's something that shouldn't leave us, but does. And I think when something like that happens, when you're old enough to really feel the magic, it stays with you longer. And I want to do that for my daughter as well.
One of the things I've learned as a grandparent is adults forget curiosity. Granted, we have more responsibilities in life than a 2-year-old or a 7-year-old, but still we get away from, oh, I wonder what's around that corner, or, hey, let's try this, instead of, well, I can't because, and I've got these 9 things to do, and that's just not what we do anymore. And man, that's the one thing that's energized me about my grandson, just a curiosity factor.
Absolutely. It's not just necessary for happiness. It's necessary for success, because otherwise, when something doesn't stick to the wall, you collapse. You stay curious, you'll never collapse.
You ought to have a team building course where you work with executives or whoever you work with, and you break them out into teams, and they have to write a song.
I actually do. I do it. Well, I do it for young people, but I hadn't thought about doing it for executives. I think that would be a really good.
Make those stodgy old people get out of their shell and out of their comfort zone, and they got to write a song, and they'll probably come up with something creative, and they'll look at it and go, hey, that's pretty good.
That's what it's about. That's the whole thing. Is I love it when people surprise themselves. You just have to help them open. You don't even have to help them open the door. You just have to make sure they see it.
Yes. And we tend to lose that. But thankfully, there are people like you that remind us of that, who can sing on the spur of the moment. Where's the best place and way for them to find you, Chris, to talk about working with kids? Hopefully they'll call you for AFLAC and do some business, because I know you'll take care of them. But as a speaker, as a singer, as a motivational person, to say, hey, you can do this because I've done this, what's the best way for them to get up with you?
Sure. I would say my email is best. It's just chendricksmusic@gmail.com. But if they want to see what I got going on, my website is just www.iamchrishendricks.com. And if anyone's interested in any benefits of any kind, check out my Instagram @singingbenefitsguy.
And I believe you're the only one in the area that probably sings benefits to potential and current clients. Am I correct?
I mean, as far as I know, there might be somebody else out there. I didn't give the nickname to myself. It came from somebody else. And it was because I sang to the first one I did was a salon owner that, because of how things were set up in her business, I wasn't able to help her. But she loved the whole experience. Like she took out she was one of the Razor's Edge salon owners, and she took out her phone and like when I started singing to her, and her son was there, and she filmed it, and wanted to get all the other salon peeps together, and that's how it all kind of started. And it's just kind of snowballed from there. So hopefully it'll continue to grow.
Any musician in history, who do you want to do a duet with?
Ooh, man, that's tough. It's really, really hard. Any musician in history, I would say, I would say,
Can you throw out a couple?
Oh my God, there's too many. Any of the Beach Boys.
Nice.
Probably, I mean, the obvious ones, Paul McCartney, of course. Really more John Lennon if he were still alive.
Yep.
And I suppose if I have to give a modern example, Billie Eilish is kind of intriguing to me. I don't know what it is. Just interesting.
New and different. Yep. That is true. Well, Chris, we've enjoyed this very much. Love the story of just you, but love the story of what you've been through, what you've overcome, the inspiration you are to those of us who, when we have a crappy day, we just need to shut the hell up. And so that's kind of how I look at it. And I appreciate you for reinforcing that. Good luck with AFLAC. Good luck with the singing. And we very much appreciated having you on the show.
Very much appreciate you, Mike. Have a wonderful day and a fantastic new year.
Thanks, sir. And we will see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.